This whole Jay-Z Samsung thing brings up this idea of privacy, where I can imagine, as all of these media and technology titans to talk about business, that has become front and center.
Yeah, no, Sarah, you're right. This is a big deal. I mean, it's hard to say if it's a bigger deal for media or technology companies, but here's a story tied to all this that brings those two worlds together. Look, we know all the big technology companies have been very defensive over the last few weeks. You were just talking about Edward Snowden, and you were talking about Eric Schmidt, who was holding court with reporters yesterday and addressing some of the privacy issues right now, and the fact that, look, this is a company that doesn't want to get too much in the way, but how can they not when they're using such powerful technology? So you're absolutely right. It is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine that they're talking a lot about, instead of piracy, privacy, and what the industry is going to look like going forward. Any sense of whether this new model, yeah, it was a huge flop, Jay-Z and Samsung, can sustain itself, can be done right?
The thing is that in a lot of ways, what they like to champion here is new ideas. And the idea of album apps, I guess, is a really interesting one, especially if you're an artist who's getting tired of only selling singles, right? You know, Tom Keene, I'm sure, has a wonderful record collection. It's hard for these artists to get those, you know, full album purchases these days. I was talking to Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, last night, and they just launched another original yesterday. They have the most powerful data that helps them decide what they should be targeting to each person. That makes for a better service. You have to be forthcoming, though, about what kind of access you're gaining to the, each customer.
John,
I think that's
within
the big issue here.
John Ehrlichman, within that, the theme out at Sun Valley has got to be we're all drowning in choice, drowning in content, drowning in digital data. What's the backstory there about where we're going to be in 2 years or 5 years?
Oh, I mean, look, I think they all know that they don't know the answer to that, and that's why they're always trying different things. I mean, you get a company like Twitter, which last year was talking about, the continued rise of its success, and Dick Costolo, the CEO, last night, bragging about the power of Vine now. You never know what 6 months later the new tool people are going to be using. I think that's why they're always trying to think about, okay, how are we positioning ourselves on issues like privacy as we try to figure out what the next big thing is going to be?
Well, to go back to privacy for a moment here, because I'm still stuck on this idea that the Samsung app wanted permission to modify or delete contents of your USB storage, prevent your phone from sleeping, retrieve your precise GPS location, and also full network communication access and read phone status and identity. These are really detailed items that they want from you. John, are the tech companies already using all this data, or are they saving it for a rainy day and building innovation to really access this?
I mean, obviously there's a lot they don't tell us about what they're doing with that data. Sometimes you can't even tell on the surface what they could be doing with that data, but data is valuable. But I think, even, I was just talking about Twitter, Jay-Z, a guy who doesn't generally take to Twitter, felt that he needed to defend himself to a certain degree. So you even wonder about how much he knew was going to be taking place with this app itself. And I think that just goes back to the fact that if you tell everybody what you're likely going to do up front, sometimes that keeps everybody from getting frustrated after the fact.
John, we've been checking in with you, and we've been talking about deals and the potential deals brewing there behind you. Hulu, I know, is a big talking point. What's the update on that? Any sense that anybody's closer?
It's tough to say. Most of the interested buyers keep telling us to talk to the sellers, and the sellers say, leave us alone. I think, remember that a couple of years ago, Hulu was on the block, and the sellers decided not to sell. I think this goes exactly back to what we were just talking about. There is this need to understand what that business is worth, and whether or not they decide they ultimately are going to sell, I think really depends on if they think it's the best move for them going forward. It's a complicated one, too, because it involves so many companies, but obviously DirecTV is very hungry to own that business. Time Warner Cable is interested in owning a slice of it, too.